Hello, this is John Ross with the XPian News Daily Report for August 7th. It's hard to believe it's moving up here in August. And today we're going to have the privilege of having a special guest here today with us, Dr. Karen Swanson, Director of the Institute of Prison Ministries at Wheaton College. So we're really happy to have Dr. Swanson with us, and she's going to share about some of the things that are happening with this pandemic that's caused in ministries, and things that are coming up too, and some thoughts. So, Dr. Swanson, it's good to have you with us today.
Well,
Thank you
thanks, John.
for coming.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and Dr. Swanson's been out to Aurora a few times when we had some clergy meetings, and she shared about the work that's happening in prisons across the country and in our state, of course, too. And she's with the Prison Institute, and I'm going to take that down. Maybe I'll take that down right now. Dr. Swanson, I do a little bit of everything. I'm the production, the technical, every aspect here.
Sure.
Where did that go? Oh, here it is. Okay, now we got a little better. So why don't you just tell us where the Prison Institute is right now and some of the things and we'll discuss other things too, but just give us a little background, maybe of yourself, the Prison Institute, and so people can know more about it than you.
Sure. So I'm in my actually 16th year as the director of the Institute for Prison Ministries, and the Institute is a training resource institution for people who serve in correctional ministry. And so we offer a lot of trainings, online trainings, and we actually are having a summit coming up, which is part of the Correctional Ministries and Chaplains Association. And the summit is actually next week. So if people want to attend that, it's CCA International.org is where they can register for that. So there's just a lot of things happening. We have a new book coming out, All Rise, Ministry with Justice Involved Women. So it's a 2-year project of researching women who have been incarcerated or reentry, as well as the volunteers and the chaplains who work with them. So those are some upcoming things happening.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, and I think we discussed this a little before we were this time together about COVID, and
Right.
Just wondered how you see the COVID affecting our local, state, and federal systems. How is that
Sure.
going? And I probably got some more questions on that. But how is that? What's happening there? You got some updates, or you want to give some thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, prisons and people who are working in prisons, the social distancing is impossible. And so it makes it a very difficult and challenging place to work as well as to live. And initially the governments, took swift action to minimize jail populations. I think Cook County let out about 25% or 30% of the people. So they tried to reduce the population. And so overall, over in the country, it was probably about 30% of the people were released. So letting people out
Right.
who either had a short sentence or pre-trial for nonviolent offenses. And then they also tried to reduce the population going in, so police didn't, issue citations for, they gave citations rather than arrests, and then prosecutors declined to charge low-level offenses. But the problem now is that that has stopped, and actually there's been an increase in people who've been incarcerated. So in the last month, the cases in state prisons has grown by 12% every week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I saw that Cook County. I just saw that today's paper. I didn't read it too much, but that's the hold spot before they go to the state system.
Right.
And I don't know how that works or who's got the authority to how that works, the play between the two institutions. But it
right.
sounded like the county, Cook County at least, was going to start sending them more to the state system.
Well, it could be, but they can't go to the state system until they're sentenced, unless they
Well,
have some
maybe
kind of
they aren't
contract.
sentenced. Maybe they're just, yeah, I hear you. You're right. They got to be sentenced people. They're just not holding for a trial. Right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
usually what the jails are. But I guess they're holding those that were sentenced now.
Right. Or it may be people who have violated their parole, and
Parole.
so they're at the jail, and so they're wanting to send them to the state, back to the state prisons. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess Cook County wants to cut down their population by sending them over to
Right.
the state.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
state.
Right.
I know certain institutions in the state have not had the COVID, but some have. Do you know anything about institutions along that line?
I don't know specific institutions that have had the COVID virus, and I know, like
Okay.
in the federal system, I think I can't remember, like 113 facilities have COVID cases.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I know they had some deaths at Stateville on this, right?
could be. Yeah.
They had some deaths. And I have a friend that I got to know from my church who's in, it's a long story. I think it's Injustice, but he's in Centralia.
Okay.
And I think it's up to Manny was showing some chart that he had of the state, and
Mhm.
maybe there's 20 or 30 institutions, and maybe 9 didn't have any COVID yet, but most of them had COVID.
Right.
And but Centralia was one that didn't have that COVID right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how how's the early release stuff been? How is that? Some would say the early release, I want to ask your thought on this, that's
Yeah.
brought crime to the city because we're letting out certain, I don't know.
Right. Right.
Is there any thought on that or any data on that?
Yeah, I don't know what the recidivism rate is on the people that have been given early release,
Right.
but what it has highlighted is, again, the need for reform for people who are released from incarceration, whether it's early or just regular release, just because of all of the collateral sanctions that they have to face when they get out. Like, they have to, check the box for being a felony, unemployment
Oh, yes.
applications. They're locked out of housing, kind of thing. So there's a lot of restrictions put on them for anybody who's released from incarceration.
Right.
So
And I
yeah,
assume right now it's very difficult. A lot of fronts, housing and job situation
right,
coming out. And then you just mentioned on top of that, that caveat about being a former felon in a job
right,
situation. Yeah.
right. So there's, I mean, to be released in this type of, situation is really tough. So,
It's good and then bad. You might want to get out of that situation at the jail, I mean, at
right,
the prison, because it might be a very incubator, I guess that's
right.
right, for the virus. So,
Yeah. Yeah, so it's real challenging. But it's also, also correctional staff. There's some states that there's more correctional staff than the incarcerated who have COVID. So it's not just, so it's affecting both the workers and the people who are incarcerated. So,
that's a good point. And do you know about the restrictions that have been placed on going to these facilities? Is that what's happened too? That
yeah,
prison ministries, chaplains, I don't know. Maybe you can
sure.
explain a little more about the chaplains. Are some of them actually employees or are they more volunteers coming in? And how does
Right,
that work? Can they come in or are they restricted to like
right. So yeah,
visitors might be?
yeah, so chaplains, it depends on who employs them. So like a federal chaplain who's employed by the federal government, they're required to come in and work.
Okay,
And
so
same
they
with,
would get in other
yeah,
words.
and same with state paid chaplains, but a lot of times at the local level in the jails, oftentimes it's they contract maybe with a nonprofit to provide the
Right.
chaplain.
Okay.
So those chaplains, again, it varies by county, but or local jurisdiction, but most of them are locked out. so they're not able to come in and do ministry.
It's the
So,
same as visitors and everything, right?
right. So visitors, volunteers, it's a state by state, jail by jail kind of case, but the majority, they're not letting people in. So,
Hmm. Uh, I want to bring this up that I had conversations with Manny Mill of Koinonia House National Ministries, and he was saying, I thought it was very ironic that he was maybe getting in prisons easier now with, I believe it was DVDs, that he
right,
could get in and then they might show it on the prison TV system or whatever they have.
right.
And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Is that,
Yeah,
have you noticed that trend or that
right.
type of thing?
Yeah, the facilities are trying to provide religious leaders come in, or maybe even the chaplain now has to do the work that the volunteers were doing. So they're looking for materials, DVDs that they can show. And so, yeah, so there's definitely an interest in DVDs. Some places will allow Zoom, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah, have you noticed that on all levels, local, state, and federal, or is it more in one area than the other, or what would you say?
No, I think it's pretty much widespread because the volunteers are locked out at every level.
Right. And
So,
it depends on who's running the institutions about letting these things in, but so it's not a policy per se from high
no,
up. Uh,
no,
so it's each institution doing
right,
their thing. Okay.
sure. Yeah,
Okay. Well, I was just, I thought that was pretty interesting. You said there's been some that have done Zoom, but it's probably
yeah,
pretty limited on that.
right. Yep.
I, I'll be honest with you, I haven't visited a facility. I don't know when I visited one, but it was just passing through. Uh, do I understand? So the Zoom thing would have to be the individuals don't have phones,
No, they don't
so
have
the
internet
Zoom would
access.
be like in a big setting with a screen, something like that.
Right. Or in a chaplain's office.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Okay,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, so have you noticed? I was just thinking about this. I think some people get about this pandemic, Dr. Karen, they get sort of like, woe is me, this is the end, we can't do anything, uh, type of feeling. Have you seen some innovation coming from the COVID in ministry here?
Yeah, so for some ministries, well, ministries that were going in, there definitely has to be a shift. So now they like maybe record their services and those are then shown, or they resorted to letter writing. But again, that does put a burden on the staff because the staff copy the letters, before they're delivered to somebody. So there's just,
Oh,
so it adds additional work for them. Or sometimes ministries have dropped off materials or Bibles to be delivered. So the staff have to kind of pick up some of this if there's
oh,
not
yeah.
a chaplain in there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've been mailing my friend, and I got one. I've had a couple rejects on my letters, and
Uh-huh.
this last reject was sort of interesting. It was in a larger envelope. I've been sending him puzzles and stuff. He likes that.
Uh-huh.
And this last time, I sent him maybe they didn't like. I cut out them and sent them. They've been getting in cut out ones from the paper. But then I sent a section of puzzles, and I sent a flyer about Manny Mill's ministry. And all of
Uh-huh.
a sudden, I got it back, and it said something about smudges. I go, where did I smudge? Do something crazy? My friend wrote me and thought, yeah, there's something crazy here about
Right.
rejecting. I know they reject stuff right and left, so
Right.
I don't have much say on that. But I just
Right.
was saying it didn't make much sense. And
Uh-huh.
anyway, I've had other things go in, and then this one just didn't go.
Yeah. Yep.
So I can see, maybe they just are overwhelmed,
Right.
like you just said, things coming in, and
Mhm. Right.
So I've had that experience, and
Uh-huh.
I agree with what you said about communicating. No, my friend, even though I'm just doing well, I am doing some spiritual, counsel in the letters, but mostly it's
Right.
just friendship and sending him puzzles
Right.
and
Yeah.
that type of stuff. And I think it's appreciated.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't think we realize how these little things can really
Yeah, it's a
affect people.
lifeline for them, having that connection with the outside. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's tried the phone calls, but that has been a disaster because they don't tell you who it is when they give a number. And I
Right.
do not do,
Mm-hmm.
I don't answer a phone call. And I let them go to voicemail, and then they go to voicemail. Then it was him, but then I can't. That's a different phone
Can't
number
call
the
back.
next time, and basically stopped doing that. He stopped doing that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they can do that. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess there can be some Zoom. Well, can there be conferences too like that? Like we're talking about Zoom or
Yeah, so
individual?
there's some visitation that's done through Zoom, but that's facilities that either were already set up for that or they would have to have added that.
Yeah,
So
because
for the families to visit.
I know you wanted my pastor to do a video, and they get a
Uh-huh.
list and the whole mess. There's a lot of other things that
Right.
a lot of rigmarole there. But so you're having a summit with the chaplains and chaplain ministries coming up. I'm going to bring that up here. I got it here somewhere.
Yeah, so it's really anybody who works in the field of correctional ministry, whether it's in reentry or as chaplains or as volunteers, or if you work with family or with youth. So it's any aspect of people working in correctional ministry.
Yeah, so I brought up this. Well, this is your correctional ministry segment.
Right.
Now, is that a segment of your prison institute, or is it a separate? I didn't quite. Are they
Yeah,
together?
sure.
Some.
It's under the umbrella of the Institute for Prison Ministries, but it's really a collaborative effort of ministry leaders who direct the programming and things that are happening with it. So it's governed by the members
Right.
and an
Okay.
executive team and an advisory team. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. And I'm gonna see what I got here. Yeah, this is. I think the flyer, if everybody can see it
Right.
here. Now,
Yeah.
this is coming up next week. Is that right? Next week?
Right. It is. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and again, the website is cmcainternational.org. And there's going to be plenary sessions, and then we have workshops based on different tracks. So, like for youth, chaplaincy, reentry, church leaders, advocacy. So, lots of different opportunities for people to join in and to participate. So,
Oh, so it's a virtual thing, right?
right, right. And
Yeah.
so the cost is $25 for members, and we'll walk you through everything and help you if you're struggling with technology. We'll help you through that. So the workshops will be live through Zoom, and the plenary sessions will be able to watch those.
Uh, what days were what was the dates there again?
Sure. 14, 15, or 13, 14, and 15. So next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There'll also be some networking times if you want to join in one of those to get to know or meet other people from around the country who are engaged in the same kind of ministry.
Now it's going to be small here, but I'll bring it in. I grabbed this from the website. This,
Okay.
this is. I'll take down this other part, and maybe we can see it. I don't know if we can too well, but that's
Uh-huh.
some. There's a listing at the website of some of the type of things that they're going to be having there, and some of our sponsors for that day.
Right. Right.
And Is this the first time you've done this summit, or you've done them before?
No, this is an annual summit. It was supposed to be in May, but with COVID,
Right.
we've moved it to become virtual. So next year, the summit will be in person, if possible, in May, but it'll be in New Orleans. So
Okay.
unless, hopefully we'll have a vaccine by then
I
and we
hope we
can
have a
meet in person.
vaccine. That's the best way to solve this COVID problem, really, is the
Right.
vaccine.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I really thank you for coming by. You want to share anything else with us here? I hope I'm
Yeah.
not missing things here. What's happening with the prison work and your work there?
Yep. So I think, just keep praying because it's a tough situation for both the leaders inside facilities as well as the families and the incarcerated. It's a really hard time.
And one other, you were noting before about the release of prisoners. I assume that's going to be taxing on ministries like Manny's ministry and others that work
Yeah.
with prisoners.
Right. So, right. Reentry ministries, like in one state, if your out date is in August, they let you out October or August 1st. So they're just release the incarcerated. And then the ministries also they're having to do without volunteers in a lot of places, again, to try and contain the COVID, especially if they have a residential program.
Yeah.
So
So
it's been a lot of taxing on them as well.
wow. Yeah. So this COVID, we need a lot of prayer. And that one scripture in Matthew that's used quite a bit, and I don't think it's overused, but Matthew 25 about visiting the prisoners.
Right.
And I think that's part of a Christian response. I think Christians working in the prisons and that. And
Right.
why don't you just give a little? I want to backtrack 1 second here.
Sure.
How did this get started? We know. I want you to give the how this all got the prison ministry, and I'm backtracking to the 70s here. You get where I'm going here. How did a certain person went to jail and found Jesus? So why don't you give a little about how this institute in the prison work got started with at
Sure.
Wheaton? Yeah.
Yeah. So Chuck Colson was actually friends with a board member at Wheaton College, and then they endowed the Institute for Prison Ministry, or he endowed the Institute for Prison Ministry, and then also there was an endowment made for a scholarship named after Chuck Colson. So that's another area that I oversee is people with a felony record, so they're able to attend Wheaton College. So there's a scholarship for those individuals as well. So yeah, the institute's been around since the 80s.
Yeah, and I think I can say this. I don't want to. If not, I'll scrub it from this video. But I think Brother Manny was one of the recipients too, and I think he
Right.
said that publicly. I don't think he's hiding
Yeah,
that.
that's true. Yeah, he was one of the first ones to be in as a Colson Scholar. Yeah.
So he always appreciates Wheaton, as I do too. I was a grad school person there.
Okay. Wonderful.
So Wheaton has a heart for. I have a heart for Wheaton. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up so that's a little perspective of how people can bring ministry from something bad. I mean, going to jail and this and but he found Jesus, and God turned him around, and his work is still, prison fellowship is still out there, and that's a big
Right.
ministry.
Right.
And so,
Exactly.
but Wheaton's been very fortunate here to have this relationship, and Karen's been heading that up. You said 16 years, huh?
Right. This is my 16th year. Right.
It's very good. It's very good.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions about the Institute, I have the website here on screen, and give them a good look. And we appreciate about that summit coming up next coming a few days. So you can look at, actually the website goes from one to the other. So you can,
Right. They
you look
connect.
at this one and then you can look at the other about the seminar, about the summit.
Mm-hmm.
So prisoninstitute.com. And Karen, I think we've covered quite a few bases here. I
Right.
know this pandemic's it's changing how we think about these things, and I just think
Right.
about prison and this. I think about my friend who's in this Centralia place,
Mm-hmm.
and I just hope it doesn't get the COVID.
Right.
And
Yeah. It's tough.
yeah, and then the families you mentioned, etc.,
Yeah.
and the ministries themselves. My friends at Wayside have their ministry, and
Right.
it's been affected too, and we're all being affected by the COVID. And I'm going to get some last things up here, Karen. Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me here 1 second.
No problem.
Yeah, once. Like I said, I'm doing everything here. I'm the
Sure.
okay. Uh, well, here's a few things I just want us to remember here in the latter part, Karen. This is just more community orientated things, but just hang
Mm-hmm.
in there with me a minute.
Sure.
One is here's one thing I don't know. Let's see if it goes. There it goes. This is just a testing program that the VNA has in Aurora, and I just want to encourage those to get in that. It's very
Mm-hmm.
inexpensive, barely zero if you don't have any money, and that's the number. It's an appointment situation, so it's 892-4355 by appointment. Hopefully, there's going to be another program. Been working with the county health department. There might be another program coming up next week or so with the state on some testing too on COVID-19. We'll hope that happens. Then this is a question, I guess, Karen. I should ask you that. Do jail people do census? Do you know on that?
I don't know that. I don't know the
I
answer to
just
that one.
wondered who does.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. Well, I know it's always a question about when you're in college. Do you do that census there, or do you do it for the one
Right.
being at home? I don't know how you answer that question.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that one.
I think it's individual choice on some of this. But anyway, the census is coming around the corner here, and we wanted to get you to get that census in, and you can do it online. Otherwise, you're going to have a person knocking at your door, maybe, in this COVID thing. But I've heard it's very close to doing the knocking on the doors coming. So get that census in. So, and I maybe got one more thing here. Yeah, next Monday we're going to have Joe Jackson come by, and he's the managing director of Hesed House. So we're looking forward to have Joe Jackson talk about that. And Karen, they had very similar things at prison. They had to move the facility to a hotel, and now they got to
Wow.
sort of dissect it and
Mm-hmm.
spread it out and how their future is going to be. So it's
Right.
a very complex and expensive situation
Yes.
for this. So,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
assume this is everything is costing money. You know, the state doing these things with prisons and
Mm-hmm.
this and the local. Uh, COVID's costing us money.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Right.
So I just again want to thank Karen for being with us, and we enjoyed her visit here.
Well, thank
And
you, John.
remember the prisoninstitute.com. I don't have it up there right now. I can only do one at a time, or the way this thing works.
All
But
right.
thank you very
All
much,
right.
Karen Swanson, Dr. Karen Swanson of the Institute for Prison Ministries at Wheaton College. I just thank you much for joining us this afternoon. And God bless, and we'll keep in touch. And any
Okay.
updates or anything, we'll do that, Karen. And
Okay.
folks, remember out there, if you're involved with chaplaincy work, that summit next week. So look at that website.
Right.
Look at both of these websites and find that out. So again, thank you, Dr. Karen.
All right.
And
Thanks, John.
I'm just going to got one more thing here. It's God bless and bye-bye. Bye-bye, Dr. Karen. Bye-bye. Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you for coming our way. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.